For years, the Attleboro Arts Museum has presented a group exhibition in late summer featuring the works of select member artists. The selection process for 8 Visions began during the museum's Winter 2012 Members Exhibition. 50 artists applied to be considered for this premier exhibition opportunity. Juror William Pope carefully reviewed each artist's work, and the field was then narrowed down to 20 artists. Of those 20 artists, 8 were chosen to be part of 8 Visions by outside jurors. Thursday night, the museum held the opening reception for 8 Visions with many art lovers in attendance. AACS was there to see the art and speak with some of the exhibiting artists.
We're here tonight for the 8 Visions opening reception. 8 Visions is a very special exhibition at the museum. It's all members, composed of all members. This year, as well as other years too, they represent all different mediums. And the 8 Visions participating artists came to the museum through our member show. And our juror reviewed all of their work and then passed 20 names on. We actually had 50 people who were interested in being in 8 Visions. And then those 20 artists were reviewed by outside jurors, and then the 8 were finally selected. So to have your work in 8 Visions is not an easy task, and it's a wonderful opportunity for the artists because they get to show a body of work in a group show. The show runs it opened yesterday, which was August 7th, and then it runs through September 7th. And the museum's open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 4 until Labor Day, when we're open from 10 till 5. Admission is free. We're very happy to have folks come in and see this nice work.
This is a body of work that was shot in 2012. I'm a fine art photographer, and I tend to prefer shooting at locales where I can find abandoned buildings, signs of a former human presence that are there in sort of a ghostly and spiritual way. This work was done in North Dakota. The eastern half of North Dakota is still a very largely agricultural community. It's rich farmland, still quite prosperous, but over the years the small family farms have been rolled up into much larger units, and while that amalgamation was happening, you find that many of the outbuildings of the farms are left behind, just abandoned. More trouble to tear them down than to just leave them there. There's a great atmosphere that I find in this kind of lonely landscape with a small, vacant presence, former habitation, sometimes looking a little dispirited, a little disquieting, and it lets, I think, the viewer have an opportunity to write their own story and imagine the kinds of lives that were lived here before.
I have 8 pieces here in this wonderful show, and I tend to work very intuitively. They're collages and monoprints that I gradually build up through a kind of playful, intuitive approach, and I don't know where each piece is going to go. I just start putting down color and shape and form that pleases me, and respond to the process as it goes along. I find my pieces express a kind of love of life, and or at least that's what I'm trying to do, is to express that. The main emphasis is that I'm having fun, being playful, and I love to work with a variety of colors and see how they work together.
This is a new body of work for me, and to be very frank, I am not as sure of what it all means to me as I usually am with my work, because this is more typical of the work that I had done in the past, because I was dealing with architectural spaces and what the spaces meant. But this new body of work deals with toys and things that imply motion. And I started making three-dimensional objects as study tools because I wasn't quite sure that I could handle the perspective. Something like the older architectural pieces were very simple for me to make. These were much more complex and actually much more fun. I really wanted to make these toys. I think the idea that you can't touch them, that you aren't able to play with them, but you can understand them so well from the image, adds a nuance that the actual object doesn't have.
I work mainly in still lifes. They're mostly oil. Lately, I've been dealing with kind of introducing other items into my artwork, such as like meat and packaging. Traditionally, still life painters have kind of forgone using packaging, and I've kind of starting to incorporate that more. You know, I work in all different sizes. I mean, the biggest one here is 30 by 40, but I think I prefer to work smaller for the most part. Depending on how I feel, I will use a palette knife or I'll use a brush. They both have two totally different feelings to them. You'll notice that when the smaller paintings, the radishes, that's all done completely in palette knife, and it's a lot slower, possibly even maybe less expressive than the brushes. You can get a lot of expression with huge brush strokes, but the palette knife, you can really concentrate on which color you're putting where and the shape that dab of color is making.
Today I'll be showing these ice abstractions. They're generally close-ups of ice after an early winter freezing, where the wind may have been blowing and creating some sort of a surface texture. Oftentimes it's organic matter underneath, such as dirt or grass or sometimes pavement, and that combined with the wind will create these texturous patterns. My intention was to create, much like someone can see animals or creatures or shapes in the cloud formations as they're daydreaming, looking up into the clouds in the summertime. My intention here was to do a similar kind of thing and do it with the ice.
I work generally in mixed media, primarily with acrylic paint, and always in the abstract. Most of my work just comes from ideas that are spontaneous, and the paintings have many, many layers beneath them. So there are stories underneath that the viewer never gets to see. I have 8 pieces in this collection, and this collection is uniform in size in the sense that they're all 3 feet by 3 feet square. In other series that I've done, the sizes change, and sometimes the theme of the series changes as well. This group is a little of the unexpected because this time I experimented with colors that I don't always use and just had fun with the paintings.
For anyone who's interested in becoming part of the 8 Visions process, keep a lookout for our members exhibition Call for Artists, and you can find out more.